Council study session on water resource management. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rusing.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fruworth.
Here.
Councilwoman Frederickson. Here. Councilman Gambogi.
Here.
Councilman Gehring.
Here.
Councilman Ruby.
Here.
And the record will reflect that Councilman Grady is excused from the meeting.
First item.
Presentation and discussion regarding water resources management for the city of Prescott.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Brian Reese. I'm the Water Resources Manager here for the City of Prescott under the Community Development Department. Our Water Resources Management Overview, as we're calling it today, is a high-level presentation for you. As a new council, just kind of getting going in your work. We wanted to make sure that new council members had the advantage of having some information about what we're doing in water resources. It gives us good opportunity so that the water resource staff, you can meet them and they can tell you kind of exactly what they're doing and what's involved in their everyday efforts on water resource management here for the city. So this is a high-level conversation. It's an informal conversation, so any questions that you have, we'll try to answer them on the spot. But for our veteran council members, some of the information will probably already have been known, especially if you served on water issues subcommittee, those type of things. But a good opportunity to give your feedback, let us know what you are interested in coming up for 2026 so we can be prepared to help you with any water-related items that you want to look at in more detail or want to know more about, and for us to let you know what's the focus of our work efforts at this point in time. So, agenda-wise, we'll go over a regulatory framework and assured water supply. I have Leslie conduct that part of the presentation for us. And then we'll go into water conservation, and Tracy will take over at that point. And then I'll come back up and we'll go over a little bit on water policy and touch on the Big Chino Water Ranch long-term water management plan, a little bit on the HELA adjudications, and then we'll wrap it up with some questions and answers. So if you don't have anything else at this point, I'm going to go ahead and let Leslie kick it off for us.
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. You have my introduction, so you know who I am, and I'm going to move through about 4 slides fairly quickly because, as Brian mentioned, I think with your time in or the study that you've done preparing for your roles, some of this is very familiar. So the regulatory framework, this is what guides our department quite a bit. There's many different facets within this, so I just took a clip from the state's website to use today and to just highlight a few things as we go. So I'll just start at the top block. I was told I'm supposed to be patient with this. Let's see. There. Okay. So the active management area, I'm sure you're very familiar with that, but it has some other things that happen within that. One of it is annual reporting. So each year this department pulls together all the data that is amazingly collected daily by your Public Works Operations Department and other sources to pull together a report for the state regarding our supplies, our demands, and et cetera. Also within this category here is your irrigation grandfathered rights. The city has about 24 of those that we want to keep an eye on and or pledge to our assured water supply. And then, of course, we operate under the 5th management plan with the Department of Water Resources, and that focuses heavily on conservation. The next block down is adjudications. The city has filed just about 33 statement of claimants with the department for that piece, and I won't go into that anymore because you have more later in this presentation. The Assured and Adequate Water Supply Program, as you know, we have one designation in order and it's currently being modified. More information in the next few slides. The community water system. So this is somewhat special, but we have one of those, and so we have to keep up our reporting on that as well. Conservation in the middle, top middle. Tracy's going to cover all that for you today. The next section is dam safety. We have 4 jurisdictional dams that require care and oversight by the state. The next block is
Could you name those dams?
Sure. There's you have a dam on Watson Lake, a dam on Willow Lake, and then Goldwater Upper and Lower both have dams. So those are the 4. Yes, ma'am. Hydrology, my favorite. That's where all the data comes from. And so, as an example, we use that for water level understandings and much more. Here at the city, your production wells are monitored by the state as well as several others. Your next block, laws, rules, policies. Okay, that's a real long one, but as you know, you're guided by Arizona Revised Statute. You also have the Arizona Administrative Code, Section 12, and then they have policy statements as well. So these are the things that we also keep an eye on. If there's changes, additions, as you know, there's legislative activities right now. They're in session, which could change things. The underground storage facility is basically a recharge facility that entails 7 different permits. And then we have connectivity through an aquifer protection permit with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. So Public Works Operations make sure they keep up on the aquifer protection permits, but it's also noted in our ADWR permits as well. So we do our best to collaborate. And if we see something that's coming due, we cross-check and make sure permits are updated along the way. Surface water, you have about 42 different documents related to surface water. And then the last one is your groundwater wells permitting. The city has over 110 wells. You actually use 7 of them right now. So you have 7 production wells, but you've acquired land over time, over the years, and so you have other wells. They could be exploratory. Most of them are very small. Your large ones, of course, are the top 8, which one is not operating right now. So 7. Moving along, I hope that was a quick run. So if you go to the state's website, you'll see these headings if you want to dig into it a little bit more. The Prescott AMA, I think everybody studied this many, many times, so you know what it looks like, which is the map on the left. Everybody knows there's 2 subbasins, the Little Chino and the Upper Agua Fria. Moving into the middle section, even back into the 70s, there was a groundwater commission, and this area was noted to be a critical groundwater basin. So the active management area in 1980 was nothing new. It's just it clarified things across the state. So this has always been kind of a watched area within the state. Presently, of course, we continue to be regulated, and a lot of things fall under the 5th Management Plan, or everything I showed you on the previous slide. And then into the future, the 5th Management Plan will remain in effect until Arizona Revised Statute puts forward another series of plans, and it has to be adopted. So that is a big effort. It's not small for the Department of Water Resources. And
Leslie, I have a question
Yes,
about
ma'am.
the AMA map. Now, the city of Prescott pumps the Little Chino, and Prescott Valley pumps the Little Chino and also Agua Fria?
Prescott Valley's wells are predominantly in the Upper Agua Fria, the green
Okay.
area of the map. They can have influence if they're right against that sub-basin boundary.
And then they recharge into the Agua Fria.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
The quick facts, I think everybody knows those, so I probably won't go through those with you one by one. Okay, so this was the additional slide that I said we would be getting to when we were on the first set. I think this is familiar to you. This is a picture that was drawn probably in the early 2010s. I did this to convey what your legal document looks like in a picture because there's a lot going on in that document. Again, I think this is familiar. You've seen this before. Both the text of your decision and order and this diagram is available on the city's website. We've maintained that over the years. I think the key point is that there it goes. We typically add these two blocks up, which sums about 16,500, and that's what you're actively using. This always was presented in the past is that we didn't connect the line to the Big Chino. It was, as part of your 2009 DNO, it's in your portfolio. However, you don't have the infrastructure to move that water supply. So there were limited reservations made against that amount of water there.
Mayor,
Yes,
Matt?
Harry.
Leslie,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm hoping you can finally squish it into my brain because I have a hard time grabbing onto this. The idea that the alternative water from theoretically that would be coming at some point from Big Chino, if that in fact happens, is nonetheless included within our water portfolio, but it's not actually there. We're not using it. How does that impact the decision making? The fact that this alternative water from Big Chino is in our portfolio.
Okay, let's walk through that because I think that is important. So the alternative water here is different from the alternative water that's Big Chino.
Right, I'm just talking about the Big Chino alternative water.
That is in the portfolio, but we haven't made reservations against it except for in two cases. One for a portion of Deep Well, which has been modified, and the other, the volume that's going to go to Prescott Valley.
So that alternative water related to the Big Chino is in fact influencing decision making as far as water budgeting or agreements. It's not just a theoretical element of our portfolio. It is an impactful element of our portfolio.
In your portfolio, it is legally, physically, and continuously available in this 2009 portfolio. When we get to the next slide, we are going to see some changes, and I'll try to explain those as well. Is that
Okay, well, it's still not squishing in my head, but I'm hoping further slides will help.
Yeah, Mr. Ruby.
Yeah, sort of following on. Would this mean that the growth projections we've had from 2009 using this chart included the Big Chino in those projections?
growth projections? Okay, yeah, this is where it gets kind of involved. So when we go to the next slide, which will be your decision order that's being modified, that's at the state right now, we included demand, whether it was assigned to Big Chino or not, because the bottom line is we have to make sure any demand we're trying to put into this legal document, we have enough supplies for. So at this moment, we can show that we will have enough supplies for your demand that we're presenting at the state right now. This is probably not maybe a 101 discussion on your portfolio, but I'll do the best I can.
Yeah.
So we might need some more dialogue and some more pictures, but let's just back up to this. I think with this alternative supply, I want to pause here for a second. This is in your portfolio and active, so you have direct delivery going out to customers. You have treated effluent that's being stored and recovered, long-term storage credits, and the surface water. So this is, the groundwater and this alternative water block have been fully active for quite a long time. The Big Chino alternative water is what the city planned for in 2004, 2005, and when they were buying the ranch and thinking, we're probably running up against our available supplies. What are we going to do? We've already pulled alternative supplies, to offset your groundwater. You've already activated using effluent, reclaimed water, surface water to limit or reduce the amount of water you use from the aquifer, kind of on paper, but in reality at the same time. But they knew they were probably going to need more. And this backs up even to, Councilwoman Frederickson, it backs up to the CAP supplies that the city had at one time. So they sold those CAP water rights off. Big Chino became in statute identified for a certain volume. You went through administrative hearings, and the history just goes on and on. So,
Any other
Is that-
questions? I have a question, Leslie, on the alternative water, transported, imported, Big Chino groundwater. Shouldn't that number be half because we share it with Prescott Valley?
The more details, which I think are important. So this is the full volume that's identified in the decision and order. And then in the accounting we did at one time, we had basically accounts where we shipped off that water, and we knew that half of it roughly was already identified for Prescott Valley. So we're kind of the carrier of the water for them, legally, physically, you know, all that. And then we shuttled off a little bit to a portion of Deep Well at one time until the contracts were modified 8 years ago.
So that number should be more in the 4,000 for our use.
We know internally, yeah, how much we need to
Okay.
use, but overall, we need to carry that full bucket because we have an IGA with Prescott Valley for the portion that you're identifying.
So without using paper water, so currently our demand, we're actively using 16,500
We have the ability to use up to that amount.
acre feet per year.
Yeah. We're pumping around just over 7,000 acre feet per year, but in previous
We're
conversations,
pumping 7.
a little over 7, generally. Goes up and down each year. But you've also committed yourself or obligated yourself to additional water. So we're tracking that as well, because once you
Yeah.
run up against your full volume,
Because we're capped at how much we can pump by SRP from the Big Chino. Is that, so that's where this 9,466 number comes
No,
from?
that's-
Is that the maximum we can pump?
no, that's not related to Big Chino at all. That's your Little Chino aquifer.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant the Little Chino.
That's okay. Yeah, as I said, the legal document's very complicated. We put it into picture, and it's still quite a bit to take in one sitting. So your groundwater block is what you proved back in 1999 that you were typically pumping and needing. And then what adds on to that is when we have a groundwater allowance ability, which is your pre-1998 plats that were preliminary platted in 1998, but they go to final plat, we can take those into the state, and that brown block of groundwater can be increased. So your examples would be Yavapai Hills, Prescott Lakes, and others.
So we're pumping about 7,000 acre feet a year, and what's the maximum that we can pump
Physically or
in the
on
future?
Chino?
You know, like say in the future with all the adjudications and everything, what's the maximum we can pump? Because I was under the impression there's a cap. We just can't keep drilling wells and pumping the Little Chino as much as we want. We've got a cap.
It's going to rely mostly on your physical availability, what that aquifer can do, how low you want to take the aquifer down in your pumping and others that are pumping. And then it'll rely on your decision order. So the state keeps balance on that. So your max number we're looking at right now is about 16,500.
So the 16,500. Okay, and
If
this,
you-
but that includes storage credits and all that kind of stuff. Okay.
Everything we can piece together to make a full picture to cover the demand that you had existing or you've committed yourself to,
Okay.
the city has committed itself to.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Gehring.
So, Leslie, regarding Big Chino, is the agreement between the City of Prescott and Prescott Valley, which requires mitigation in case we affect the headwaters of the Verde River, is that still in effect?
That's a different document. So when we start talking mitigation, that's going to be the three-party agreement, comprehensive agreement number 1. And Brian will be able to go over that more a little bit later in the PowerPoint. But what you have is an intergovernmental agreement with just yourself and Prescott Valley for the supplies, the Big Chino supplies. And then you have a three-party agreement, separate agreement with SRP, Prescott Valley, and Prescott. But SRP is the one who put in place the mitigation discussions.
Another question then, are we fairly certain that we're going to have the final finished groundwater flow model for Big Chino by middle of the year?
if you don't mind, if I can delay that response until Brian, he has some notes on that as well. So we might want to keep rolling so he can catch that later.
I'll go into it more later, but yes, just to answer your question now, we feel the middle of the year is the timeframe we're looking for, the completion of the base model.
One more slide for me, and then I'll move along. No, I enjoy this. This has been my career for many, many years, even prior to being with the city. And these things are involved. All right, so the assured water supply update, this is your decision in order. So I put in the key dates, and I'm pretty sure you read through this, but we'll just do the play-by-play real quick and then get to where we're at now. So the city in December of 2021 filed its application to modify the 2009 decision order, which was the picture you just saw. It was required to, within the 2009 decision order, to update it when certain conditions came along. In 2022, we received our first deficiency letter and was notified that there'd be another one coming, and they called it the supplemental deficiency letter. We've responded to both of those. In 2023, the city received another deficiency letter, and then in 2025, the city responded to that deficiency letter number 3. Deficiency letter 4 then came in as well, and we had some back and forth conversations that were related solely to the groundwater model that we submitted through our consultant matrix, and it kind of went quiet. So we had questions as to why and what we needed to do, because their letter wasn't very clear. So we waited on that a little bit. There were some discussions internally and with the department, and they decided that they were going to reimburse our application fee for $2,000. So that's on the radar there. And then we were still kind of waiting as to what's going to happen next. We understand they have a lot of different applications in right now, and we're tied up with a lot of different things. And as soon as January 13th came along, we got a letter, and so that's why we added this to the slide. So we are on our 5th deficiency letter from them, and a quick overview. This document, I think it's been circulating in-house for a little bit now. We've definitely been talking to the consultants, and it can be provided to council as well. The gist of it, there were 9 items they wanted to address with us. The first one was satellite service area. We do not have one. They wanted to discuss the term of the designation. They wanted to limit it to 15 years. We had filed for a 20-year because we had precedent from our previous decision order for 20 years. So we filed for that. They have rolled us back to 15. Related to that, item 3 were related to demand estimates. So once we had our time frame for this DNO settled to be, it's going to be 15 years, we had to adjust our projections. They had questions on groundwater flow, the flow model that is associated with the application. Number 5 was the reclaimed supply availability. So they had some questions about the math, but I don't think we have an issue there. Number 6 was the surface water. They wanted to update our reservoir study to include 2020 data to 2024 data. So as you can imagine, if we filed back in 2021, we were still probably pulling together data for 2021. So we're working in a totally different time frame. This has extended a while. So we don't have any issue with doing that. The next one was number 7 is financial capability. So that involves our 5-year CIP, which we'll be in discussions a little bit more with Public Works about. Number 8 was our groundwater allowance that remains. It's under review. Again, your groundwater allowance subdivisions include Yavapai Hills, Prescott Lakes, and some others. And number 9, related to the Big Chino, they had determined that it was not physically, continuously, or financially, what do they call that? Feasible? I just lost the word. Physical availability. So it's availability. However, you do have your legal in place. So we are addressing that as well. Of course, we've been in touch with the 3 consultants, the one that does groundwater, the one that does the supply and demand, and our outside attorney as well. So that's where this letter stands. So I hope that's a...
So in a nutshell, the Big Chino is not included in our water portfolio at this time?
It is because you're still operating under the 2009 DNO. However, when you move into your next DNO, when this settles with the department, it may look different, as you had just mentioned.
Because it doesn't look very encouraging if after 5 years, we're still getting deficiency letters. It sounds like they're not convinced.
True.
Okay,
So-
well, that's
That's,
a reality.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
This is my last slide, so Tracy Beasley will be able to provide the next section of this update.
Do you have any sense of when our DAWS is going to come through for the 2021 filing?
Honestly, I don't. So staff-wise, we run every time we get one of these deficiency letters, and then we have 3 consultants that support it. So our conversations with the attorney, the outside attorney, was that he was seeing the department was involved in many different activities. We're not the only one who continues to get deficiency letters. We're not the only ones that are getting delayed. So we're in the same boat as many other applicants across the state. I don't know if that's any consolation or not. It doesn't feel good, for us at all to continue to kind of battle through these letters. But our goal, of course, is, or I had mentioned this, is with each deficiency letter, I try to get it tighter, less comes back to us. So if we have 9 items on the table right now, I'd like to see, half of those gone, if not more, the next time if we get another deficiency letter.
Is Prescott Valley involved in any of these deficiency letters or just us?
It's the city's portfolio, so
Okay.
towns are usually not involved.
Does that compromise our status as a water importer if the Big Chino's not in our portfolio officially with the state?
This will be my personal opinion based on my years, is that you have it legally available. It is legally identified. Big Chino wasn't in your portfolio right away. The city had worked extremely hard and through court cases, administrative hearings, I should call them, to have it brought in because the council wanted the security and knowledge that it was in their DNO. So if that is another step the city wants to take at some point, there will be pieces you'll need to pull together to go in, and we'll modify staff, whichever staff will work to modify on behalf of the city with the state to bring it back in.
Okay, all righty, thank you. Any other questions till we move on?
Is this a issue of the ADWR not having enough bureaucratic resources to get us a DAWS, or is it something about the data that they're finding not being coherent with what we want?
My understanding is workforce, not having enough people and being very tied up. As you probably know, a lot of their forces are spent on Colorado River supplies because of the enormous amount of volumes that are used in the metropolitan areas, both Phoenix and Tucson. So they're probably stretched a little thin.
So this might be something for the state legislature to allocate more attention to.
It would be helpful, I'm sure. As I said, our attorney told us that we're not the only ones that are feeling the pain of this ongoing.
So that might be something we want to talk to Alexis about in terms of making sure that the state legislature puts attention to this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
Good morning. No, good afternoon. I'm so used to the
afternoon.
morning, Mayor and council members. Tracy Beasley, Water Resource Project Manager. Yes, I wanted to give you just a brief, again, surface level overview of the water conservation work. Those who've been on council for a while is probably familiar, but there are a few new pieces. And I don't have a slide for it, but I thought I would start by just mentioning what I'll call Big C versus medium C, big C being conservation beyond what we do day to day with our customers, being what comes out of the state. And so the water conservation program that we have is here to support the work that we do and help sustain the resources that we have, but it's also part of legal requirements through the Fifth Management Plan and previous versions of that. So there's the big C in, yes, not only the day-to-day interaction with residents, but for example, one of my tasks over the past year has been to try and absorb the details of that Fifth Management Plan to look at how does this apply to our municipality. What things should we be doing now that have changed from the fourth to the fifth, and what opportunities are here for our long-term management planning, potential code adjustments, what's here that can help us with sustaining our resources. So that is another piece of what I have done over the last year to support the city and the department. So I just wanted to briefly mention that before going into some of the other pieces. History is something I've looked at recently. I find it kind of fascinating. The city, way back into the 80s, has been thinking about water conservation. Initially, there were task forces. There was the initial round of codes. And then as we approached the 90s, the city started thinking a little bit more about a formal conservation program. So the first official program kicked off in 1992. And it was very interesting because customers had to really work hard to get their rebates, which were in the form of a buy-in program back at that point in time. But, basically we're moving into, 35 years next year of water conservation mindset. So that's a wonderful piece of what we have been doing. Back in the 2000s, there was a shift, and the council at that time actually took a whole year to strategically plan what a more successful water conservation program might look like. And so this coming year, we're celebrating 20 years of that version of our program. So this has been something that the city has been mindful of for a while. So I thought I would just put that there. So I'm not going into all the details here, but you see the 2026. That's when the Water Smart branding and programming became a part of what we do. And then around 2010, with the actual AMA program that I mentioned, we expanded what we were doing to meet those state requirements. So 2015, we came up with our watersmart.com website to enhance the ability of our customers to get right to the information that we want them to have. And 2022 was the launch of the website as we know it, thanks to some NAMWA funding. So where does the conservation program come from now? A big chunk of it is inside city code. So I've mentioned that here, 3-10-8. Most of you are familiar with that. But that's sort of the heart of the program. This was set up in 2006. Customers would be able to initially receive rebates for their utility billing bills, and as of this year, we have actually shifted to checks, which has helped our finance department ensure that we follow state tax law. So we made that change, and that seems to be working with the support of several departments. That seems to be working well. So the goal within this program is to reduce the per account or per person water use based on efficiency. So there's changes in how we live our lives, and there's enhancements in the things that we have in our homes and our businesses that can reduce the amount of water that we use we don't necessarily feel the pain. So, a switching out of a washing machine or a toilet or an aerator, in most cases, doesn't change how we live our lives. And there's a lot of gain to be made out of the efficiency side of what we're doing. So that is the sort of the heart of this part of our program.
Excuse me, there seems to be a lot of racket out in the hallway. Could somebody please close the door? Thank you.
The initial offerings included turf removal, drip irrigation, leak repairs, a number of other things. We have 9 different categories. Currently, all of this is available on the PrescottWater.com website. All you have to do is click the rebate button at the top, and you can see all of the details there. So since 2006, thanks to the shift of our department from a third-party software to an internal management of our program, we now know that we approved over 4,500 applications with an estimated 10,000 plus rebates. So that means 4,500 applications. Customer might have replaced 3 toilets. They may have made 4 leak repairs, that sort of thing. So as we move further into the spring, we'll have a little bit more of a robust presentation on 2025. And then as we get to the summer, we're going to have a really nice presentation for council on, I guess we'll start at WIS. So we'll have the presentation at WIS on all the things we're learning and the direction we're moving with that program. But as of last year, we had 285 rebates with an estimated 6.5 acre feet water saving annually from that program. So I was told not to have too many slides, so I put a lot of text on one slide. I'm glad you have your handouts. So this is sort of an overview of the program resources we have currently. We have a variety of print materials. We have the PrescottWater.com website. We engage with the city's social media team to try and make sure that we get the word out through those pathways. We've historically always had 2 to 4 PSAs on the radio every quarter, and so depending on the direction the city goes, this may be something that we continue to sustain. This past year, I've been working on maintaining some presence in the newspaper, small ads, but present, using QR codes to help us identify, we're looking for metrics, how many people are engaging and are they using the QR codes so we know where they're finding out about us. And when I'm talking with people, I'm asking a lot more now as well. Did you see us in the paper? Did you hear it on the radio? To get a sense of how people are finding out about our programs. Public presentations, that has changed up and down through the years. Between now and the end of June, I'm anticipating we'll have about 25 public programs and events that would have happened during the current fiscal year. Typically, we do the library viewer display, which is an opportunity for a presence in the city. I've upped the number of free items that I have in my office. And I always travel with those so I can engage people in conversations, aerators, drip irrigation heads that are pressure regulated, bags for toilets, all sorts of things. And so we've seen a definite interest in those resources. We have a partnership with SRP this year where we have free kits that get mailed to you. Because we are part of the Water Use It Wisely program as of this current fiscal year. And so we saw our first report from that program. And if you add Chino Valley and Prescott together, we were actually right up there with a number of kits that the larger municipalities had been giving out to their customers. So people are definitely very interested in these free resources. This year, we're starting to support the Water Ops Eye on Water program with the smart meter change out. We really want as many customers as possible to sign up for the leak detection program. It's a wonderful opportunity. I've heard numerous stories already where people have signed up and found out they had silent leaks. So it's a wonderful way to increase our efficiency and to save customers money. So we have started by public outreach, partnering on presentations every several months, and as long as I have my part-time support, we will be engaging directly with some of the Eye on Water customers a little bit later as we head into the spring. So we're definitely utilizing that as an opportunity for water savings with our customers. Partnership events, I'm not going to read them all out, but you can see we have some standards that we've participated in the past, and we're certainly looking for opportunities for additional partnerships. Which, by the way, the Highlands Center plant sale will be May 1st and May 2nd. So we just found out the dates. This current year, some of the things that we've done, as I briefly mentioned, is I went through the rebate program looking for opportunities to enhance what we are offering our customers with clear guidelines, involving the commercial audience a little bit more with an enhanced toilet program, and then also enhancing the amount of dollars we can provide to non-residential customers. So those are some of the changes. We shifted our program from a third-party software to internally. I've had very good feedback about the online rebate application. And it is one of these projects that we tuck in between all the other projects that we're doing. And so we're a little bit behind on finalizing the final data set, but it will be finished within the next couple of months. And it's allowing us a resource to start digging in and truly understanding how much savings this program is offering us. So I've been looking at the details behind the scenes. We don't have a 2.5 household, we have a 2.0 household. So it's important that we use those numbers. And so really looking at that and then working with the consultants who are supporting the long-term water management program and plan to truly parse out where our savings might be the greatest. How many toilets have been swapped in our service area? You know, what's the potential for water reduction in the future with a strong rebate for our toilets? And so really looking deeper into these metrics to find best paths. And then last is looking forward. Some of the things that I've really, from the get-go, have been looking at is how do I make this as simple as possible for our customers? How do I remove barriers? What can I do to make it easier? Because if it's easy, you're going to do it. If it takes 20 steps or it's hard to get to, you're less likely to do so. So that is sort of my mentality. So enhancing our printed resources, enhancing our website, looking at target programs. For example, what can we do if we really want to focus on customers who we know are already going to change out their toilets? What are the resources and steps and tools that we can take? So being more targeted in trying to find ways to increase our successes. Leveraging partnerships. I'm thrilled with the beginning steps we've taken with Water Use It Wisely. They have consulting firms that are doing really wonderful things. Now there are 3 partners in Northern Arizona in that program. So we're looking at how can we shift and add to some of what they're doing that makes more sense for Prescott, Prescott Valley, Flagstaff, the northern part of the state. And then finally, looking at tried and true successful programs. I've been in environmental education since I got out of high school almost, and I'm very passionate about it. But there's 50, 60 years of research that says a lot of what we've been doing isn't successful. There's also research showing how to be successful. And so I've been following that the last couple of years. So there are some pilot programs that we can do with small audiences to really leverage and up our impact on water conservation. So I look forward to, as we roll into FY27, beginning potentially to launch some of those initiatives. I think this is my last slide. Yes. I know that was a lot in a few minutes, but wanted to make sure everyone had good time for the rest of the content.
Before you move on, I was going to ask about, are we really pushing the stormwater capture technology, both active and passive, with our conservation efforts?
You know, fancy that you mentioned that. I actually was a guest at an Ollie presentation this morning where Barnabas Kane, who this is his area of expertise, was giving a presentation. And there's another event coming up in a few weeks where I'll be attending. So this is on our minds, and we've been working to gather regionally specific information. Because again, when we talk about we want customers to do things, well, we need to give them the step-by-step. And so one of the things that's been missing is what plants should we be using in Prescott versus down in Phoenix? And so I've made some minor modifications to the materials that are on the website to make things a little bit clearer. We have a pre-application so that we can support customers from the very beginning. And as I get this information, I am fingers crossed, hopeful that I will be able to, probably in a less formal document to start, but really give people the resources to help them know what are the steps and where can I find the plants that I need if I want to choose this.
Well, I'm glad to hear that Barnabas Kane is very actively involved in helping us conserve water. He's a very talented landscape architect that's been around for a long time. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's the one who designed the landscaping in front of our parking garage there that is always so attractive. And it's probably one of the most attractive parking garages in the whole state when you look at the flagstone and everything that's on it. But it's good to hear that he's working also with the private sector and educating people with the Ollie classes. So that's good to know. Thank you.
Yep, we should have a presentation at some point before the end of the summer on this topic at the library. So definitely anticipate that as well.
Yes.
So yes, what percentage of the city has now been converted over to the smart meters?
We're at just under 13,000.
Just
25,000.
13,000 roughly out of 25,000. And we have 1,500 customers on the Ion Water program currently, so about 12%.
My neighborhood's on the very end, so we haven't been converted yet. But I was also going to say, as city council members, I think we need to be good stewards and good examples of water use. So how many people look at their bills every month and calculate what they're using? I do, and we're a household of 2, and we're down to like 50 gallons a day, which is pretty good. And so I just would like to challenge everyone else to keep an eye on their water. How about you, Mr. Gehring?
Yeah, we're at 50 gallons a day at our house. And this is the second house we've had which does not have lawns. And so one day about a year ago, I thought, gee, I wonder what will happen if I turned off the irrigation meter. And so I did. Lost one non-native tree in a year. And I'm not irrigating outside the house.
Wow, that's pretty good xeriscaping.
The other question, maybe for Stephen, would be, are the smart meters having an effect on the percentage of unaccounted for water?
Hello, Steve Wolfers, Utilities Manager. At this point in time, we really haven't seen that effect. We run at about 8.5% water unaccounted water loss. So we're looking to, or hopefully we'll start seeing some changes in there.
I would think those meters are going to help because they're going to be more accurate than an old meter.
That is absolutely true.
All right, thank you.
I can add one data point because I was looking at that information this past week. Of the customers who have the leak detection, 5% of them have leaks. And I was scrolling, and most of them look fairly recent. So if you compare that to, it's kind of preliminary now, but we usually run between 7 and 9% at the end of the year on a total city loss. I think that's heading in the right direction.
Mary?
Thank you. And Tracy, I don't know if you are the one to address this, but just following up on the mayor's challenge as to who looks at their water bill. I understand we have tiered water rates, but there's no indication on the water bill itself as to when you fall into the next higher tier. So I look at my water bill and it shows I use however much it is. How close am I to, or how much of that billing every month is at the high dollar rate? How close am I if I took some kind of conservation, maybe with my outside watering, could I drop off that really expensive water and cut my water bill in that way? Is there any thought as far as whether or not the billing department would be able to break that out for people on their water bills, just so that there can be awareness of the fact that at a certain point, your per gallon water rate skyrockets?
Right. I will say preliminary conversations with utility billing have been very supportive. I do know that they order paper far in advance, and almost 70% of our customers get paper billing. So this is something that I definitely can bring into the conversation, but it might be about a year or so if it is approved to roll that out just based on the pre-printing of the paper. But yes, definitely, and we can include that in some other ways as well.
I just know from a conservation standpoint, it's when it hits your pocketbook that people start paying attention. And knowledge is power. If people knew where that point is when they are starting to use very expensive water, they would have that motivation to cut back.
Absolutely, and I think this is a learning curve point that we can use with the Eye on Water as well. While it may not have the break-off point, it allows you to monitor week by week, month by month. And so if the customers are familiar with that point, then the app can help them with that as well.
Thank you. I do hope that that's a conversation that could happen, goes forward and happens.
Okay, Mr. Ruby?
Yeah, this is sort of about barriers to making the water smart choices. I think for some people in our community, like replacing a toilet if they're elderly is a hard choice. And so I'm wondering, is there any way to create some type of program that helps people, because it would save on their bills, but I think there's not an ability to do that work. The other side of that is apartments, trailer parks, places where people don't own their homes and they don't have the incentive to do the savings because the infrastructure doesn't belong to them. Do we have any type of way of approaching some of those apartments or trailer park owners or larger kind of areas where a lot of people are living, senior homes?
Sure, yeah.
Yep.
The first part of your question, this is definitely something that I'm aware of. The costs behind replacing a toilet, in a one-person household, it's not just seniors. Fewer and fewer people know how to do this work anymore, and so getting that swap out is challenging. So we do, for those who have income challenges, we do have a program through the Chamber of Commerce. That's a grant program that might be something that customers can look to help with those costs. We look for partner opportunities. We have one more cycle with the Friends of the Verde River, where homeowners can get up to $5,000 in costs for water savings efforts Commercial can get up to $10,000 in this last cycle, which ends at the end of March. So for the immediacy, for First Step, those are two resources that are currently available. And so, yes, I hear what you're saying, and I think as we move, if this is the way that makes sense from a demand management standpoint, I think the recommendations will be there to expand and enhance that piece. The second part of your question, sorry, say that, what was your second part again?
It was around apartments, trailer
yes, thank
parks,
you,
senior
thank you.
homes. Like, if those people are still using the toilets that use
Right.
a lot of water,
Right.
what is a way to get like a mass transfer in there? Because I think
Sure.
the savings would have impact.
We do have one-on-ones. We do have individuals living in a lot of the HOAs, for example, that still do the toilet swap outs, believe it or not. So it does exist. And so we work with the HOAs to ensure that that happens. So there was a company that came to me last fall that was very interested in working in the multifamily homes in our area. And I didn't hear back from them after we had some very meaningful conversations. So I think as we move into the spring, the opportunity is to circle back because they go into these larger facilities and bring their people in and do all the swap outs in a very short amount of time versus what it might take one manager for 4 buildings, and 200 residences to try and tackle these things. So that's a second way. And I am reaching out to as many HOAs as possible this year to help build those relationships so that they know what our resources are and what our opportunities are. So definitely food for thought, but we've got some steps that we're going to be enhancing this year.
Right, Mary?
Tracy, I did see your presentation when you were at CWAG months ago now, and I know it came up, and sorry to say I don't remember the answer, but in regard to maybe economies of scale working with larger apartment complex owners or assisted living places, what about hotels?
Sure. I mean, any entity is possible, and the rebates do work. In any entity that is on city water is eligible for rebates.
And is there some kind of outreach that's going on with your department? I'm thinking in particular to the hotels that are in town as to whether or not they've considered low flow, low gallon usage
Understood.
toilets.
Yes.
If you've got 48 rooms or more, and with economies of scale of having the staff necessary to undertake those kind of swap outs, that seems like a fruitful way to spend your time is to
Certainly.
reach out to them.
Absolutely. All these ideas are wonderful. I am only limited by the fact that this is a part-time emphasis within my work. So as much as I can move forward in any given amount of time, absolutely. So, we're starting that direct communication as we roll into the spring to a lot of these entities. So some of it is through newspaper ads and PSAs. Some of it will be old school direct communication.
Sorry, Kathy, just to follow up on that. And I don't know if our current code requires new construction to include low-flow toilets or water-efficient devices in new construction. For example, a new hotel, which may be underway here in a
Right.
minute.
Our current code follows the engineering, and the state building codes, which is 1.6 currently. So 1.6 by the EPA is not really considered to be high efficiency anymore. So as we are working on the long-term management plan, looking at how we might enhance code for new build is likely to come out as one option that the city could choose to elect to move forward with significant water savings.
Thank you.
Good to know.
Is that something that we could put into our charter?
I don't know about the charter, but I was surprised that we were following federal code and not our own city low water use code.
1.6, we were ahead of the curve when that came in.
Yeah.
So we did elect as a city. I don't remember what the year was, but we did put that in, and I think if I remember correctly, it was ahead of the some of the larger rules and regulations. But now is a good time to revisit. Do we want to stay ahead? Do we want to also, shift to a 1.28? And there are other plumbing code opportunities as well. So again, as Leslie and Brian spearhead the long-term management plan work that we're doing, there are going to be a number of possibilities, and I think our consultants will provide a window into which may be more impactful, which will be, less cost prohibitive, and I'm almost certain that this will fall into those possible recommendations.
Okay, thank you. And also the dual flushes are helpful too. Okay, any more comments? Okay, moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Back when Tracy put in some adjustments in the 310 code for water conservation, one of the things that we did do there, I remember kind of a first step. Tracy, when she first came on, identified commercial or non-residential commercial customers as being a target for our conservation program that we may have not been hitting as hard as we should be in the past. And one small step that we put in at the time was to put in the paperwork that allowed a tenant of a commercial building to go ahead and get the authorization from the owner of the building in order to swap out those fixtures, because as you probably think about that, you got an owner situation, you got a tenant situation, and it can get kind of complicated on if they're able to do these type of things. So that was a good small step that we took at the time, and all good, great suggestions. And I think we're all on the right track here with commercial application being one of the next steps in our conservation program that can help bring it up. So. Okay, so moving along here. All right, we'll go into water policy a little bit, and this is probably not the most thrilling part of the program today, but I think for the new council members, I kind of think about it when we had new council members before. I don't think you guys got a good anybody gave you a good kind of a overview of what just happens with when people come in for water service and how it works through. And I think, knowing and just having a little bit of an understanding of that makes, when you get water issues or people giving you questions, it helps with understanding how the city kind of works through that. So we're just going to go over that a little bit, and then we'll get into some of the other items, the Big Chino, the comprehensive agreement number 1, and then a little bit on the HELA adjudication. So our current water policy, the city's had water policies for a long time, decades and decades and decades. When I was looking through some information, back in the 1998 timeframe when the state declared that the Prescott AMA was out of safe yield, the city did a lot of work to really enhance their water policy at that point in time. A lot of things happened at that point in time. You'll see that's when we were purchasing the lakes for alternative water supplies. And there was a lot of resolutions that created policy that we can still see in effect with the policy that we have today. It's changed. There's a lot of things have changed in 1998. It flipped one way, it flipped another way. But kind of like the structure of it kind of falls back to that time period from what we're carrying on today, and that would make sense. That was a big event in the AMA and led to changes that we see today. Our most current policy was approved in May of 2025. It's basically
Excuse me.
yeah.
Wasn't that just an amendment because our original water policy was approved in 2022 with Phil Good, and then we just kept it in place and they're just making amendments to it?
Yeah. This is the second amendment to the
Yeah.
2022 water policy was
Okay.
done in May of 2025.
Okay.
And and it was essentially the 2022 water policy is the platform that we use today. There's been a couple different amendments to make some slight modifications to some of the volume numbers that we use. And in May, we added some information about hazardous materials, try to track that a little bit better. So the water policy that we use or that we have, it helps us track water service requests and figure out how we can document and log the water that we're using, that we're allocating out. As we move forward and we start talking about long-term water management, I think we'll kind of get back into policy a little bit and how that long-term water management plan is going to help understand or affect how our policy helps us to reach the goals that we want to reach. I think it does at this point in time, but I think right now our policy helps us log. It helps us keep track of where we're allocating water and how much is going out. And that long-term water management aspect will be the key to kind of help us understand, how do you get that to kind of sync up with the goals that you have.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, did everyone get a copy of the water policy with their onboarding?
Good.
Make sure that everyone has a paper copy or make sure they've got some sort of copy of it so they can refer to. It's got a lot of great information in it.
I'm glad to hear that you guys got a copy of that, and a couple slides are going to show you how you can find a copy of it if you lost your copy. So Water Issues Subcommittee is made up of 3 council members.
Brian?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't
Yeah.
mean to cut you off. I just want to clarify, the mayor does not choose the members
Yes.
of the subcommittee.
Yeah.
That's done by the whole of council every 2 years in November, and the members serve 2-year terms. I just want to make sure that that's clear because that information on the slide's not correct.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, Councilperson Fruworth brought that to my attention before the meeting, so I was going to clarify that out a bit. But exactly, and Sarah did that for me, so sorry about that. So comprised of 3 council members. They have they create recommendations for the council as a whole, recommending body, recommend the water budgets that go into our residential and non-residential budgets on a semi-annual basis, and make recommendations on water surface applications that come in that they see that we bring in.
Everything has to be finalized and voted on by city council. We just
Correct.
bring it to city council recommendations.
Exactly, but I think that recommendation holds weight with the council because they know that this particular subcommittee is looking at water issues and is kind of the eyes and ears of for the council. At least I hope that's how it's being taken. But and then we try to bring relevant water topics. Steve Alfers many times will give us updates on items like PFAS, our water infrastructure, what's going on with the lakes, and those type of things. Tracy, you'll see her many times giving water conservation updates, and Leslie also, and anything that's changing from a regulatory framework basis. So just real quick, I'm glad to hear that you guys all had a copy of the water policy. But if you ever need a copy of the water policy, it is available on our website. So if you go into the website and you click on I never tried to do this. There we go. Yeah. You click on that little tab right there and takes you to the development. Scroll down all the way to the bottom of the page because we're the very, very last. Right there to water resources. And that'll take you to the page on the right-hand side. And you can see the various tabs over on the top of it. But just to show you just real quickly, if you go into the water policy tab, and just right at the beginning there, you can get yourself a copy of the water policy. So, and there's a lot of other information on the website, and we'll go over that as we move forward. So here's a water service application. So this is where it all starts off. Whenever anybody wants to come into the city and wants to get water, they fill out a water service application for the most part. There's a few unique situations where they might not have to do that, but for the most part, everybody's filling out a water service application, giving us basic information about the applicant, about the property, what the project's going to entail, and then the last part of it there is about hazardous materials that we just added in and put it in red there. This is to give staff enough information to assess what the project is and try to determine how much water is going to be anticipated that that project is going to have to use. If we can't anticipate how much water that project's going to use because we don't have any comparable development in the area to pull numbers off of, then we will ask that applicant to go back, get with their engineer, and give us an estimate, an engineer's estimate of the demand for the project, so that we can have that information. And with that, we can move forward with kind of the simple process of processing a water service application. Two different ways that it could go: either administratively approving and logging at that point if it's smaller uses, or council action for bigger uses. So on the administrative thresholds, 8 multifamily or less, 4 single family or yes, not involved with subdivision mapping, will allow a residential project to move through administratively. For non-residential projects, anything that uses less than 1.5 acre feet per year can move forward administratively. So we'll move it forward and we'll just log it on. It will come out of the budget that is set by council and the Water Issues Subcommittee. And then on a monthly basis, I provide
Excuse me, Mary has a question.
Sure.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
On the administrative thresholds for non-residential, can you get it in my head what kind of non-residential user would fall below that threshold?
Sure. Small office buildings that are not water-intensive uses. I'd say anything that doesn't have a high water intensity use. So restaurants will fall right on that line of that threshold. So if they're small sandwich shops, things of that nature, they'll go one way, but bigger restaurants, sit-down restaurants, usually will exceed that threshold. So that's it kind of falls right in there, and yeah, that's kind of where it breaks down.
And that is an estimate that the city does or the applicant brings forward?
Yeah, so the city will first try to do an estimate utilizing our model, because we have all of the water uses associated with the different types of commercial applications in the city. We want to be consistent, and we want to make sure that the information is based on something more local. The applicant can sometimes provide us information, but maybe they have several facilities down in the Phoenix area. Sometimes the water doesn't equate real well. So we start off by seeing if we can get the demand estimate from our sources. If we can't get that, then we'll default to having them have their engineer provide us their best estimate on it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, anything above these thresholds will follow the council action. It goes to the Water Issues Subcommittee, where the water service application will be presented. We try to make sure that the applicant we strongly suggest that the applicant comes to the Water Issues Subcommittee, because most of the time the subcommittee does have questions for the applicant. The things that usually are concentrated on is the amount of water indoor that's being used and the amount of outdoor landscape that's being used. So we always provide a basic site plan, and the basic information on the site plan kind of shows the landscaping that's being proposed and how many units or whatever the building entails. With that, the subcommittee has their budgets that they know that they set on a semi-annual basis, and they have that information in their head. And it's up to the Water Issues Subcommittee to make a recommendation for the council as a whole on whether that water service application should be approved or not. And it's basically up to the Water Issues Subcommittee at that point, based on the information that they have. At that point, that recommendation is taken to council for a full vote, and we go from there. So the water budget that we talked about, set semi-annually, January to June, and then July to December. Water Issues Subcommittee makes the recommendation. It's voted upon by council for that budget. Kind of traditionally, I'd say we've had this 25 acre feet for non-residential and 25 acre feet for residential that we use as kind of a basis to start with. That it has moved around. When we did have 50 acre feet, I believe, for residential at one of our semi-annual. So it's not set at 25 per policy, and council has the ability to move that around as they see fit. I just wanted to mention that administrative approvals are tracked through the budget, and they're taken out on a monthly basis, so that even though it doesn't go through a council action, it is tracked on the budget. The one thing that we don't track on the budget is existing obligations. So as of right now, we have, I think it's well over 700 tracked obligations in our current obligation catalog. They go back to the 1940s as some of the oldest obligations. They include water service agreements, development agreements, groundwater subdivisions. Our current water service applications are being logged into our catalog at this point. And we have a tribal settlement where we're obligated to serve water to the Yavapai Prescott Indian tribe. So those are all taken into consideration in existing obligations. An existing obligation is the water resource staff will look at the project, will look at the agreement, make sure that the project is consistent with the terms of the agreement, and if it is, then it will be moved through administratively because the water has already been obligated at that point. We have big development agreements, Deep Well, AED, together have an obligation over 2,600 acre feet. Already committed, and as a water resource management group, we're taking those things into consideration as we're looking into our long-term water management plan, which we'll go into a little bit more. So, okay, with that, I wanted to go into Big Chino Water Ranch. We were talking about the Big Chino and the assured water supply, what we call the decision and order, which is the final documentation that we will get from the state that tells us that we have a legal supply of this much water. We're talking about 16,000 acre feet earlier, plus an additional 8,000 acre feet of water that was in the Big Chino. Leslie was showing you that the schematic, and the 16,000 acre feet is not connected to the 8,000 at this point. That's because we can't get the water from Big Chino to our infrastructure at this point. We'd have to build 30 miles of pipeline infrastructure. Upwards of 7 or 8 wells, might have been 11. I think it might be 11 at this point in time to get all of that water there, and a pump station, because Big Chino is actually lower than our Chino Valley water production facility, so we have to pump it up. A lot of things have to happen to get Big Chino water into the city. That 8,000 acre feet was at one time, as said, in a deep well agreement, but it was moved out of a deep well agreement. The other agreement is the IGA with Prescott, with the town of Prescott Valley. And that water is known. It's part of the obligation. It is an obligation. It's an IGA. It's a contract we put in. But it's also known that we're working with that partner to get that water to them when that water comes available. Other than that, just to try to clarify a little bit, the city is not putting or using the Big Chino water supply in any of its water management portfolios. We're not allocating that water out at this point in time. When we look at our water resource management model, which takes into account all of the existing accounts that we have, and then all of the obligations and commitments that we have, we look at it with the assured water supply that is made up of the water that we have access to, our groundwater and our alternative water, not the Big Chino water at this point in time. It wouldn't make any sense to do that because we don't have access to that water, and there's so many hurdles that have to come around in order to get access to that water. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear at this point in time. So Big Chino is located right here in the kind of the middle of the sub-basin area right here that you can see. Approximately 18 to 20 miles northwest of Paulden is located. It includes altogether about a little over 6,000 acres of land. City purchased property 2004, I believe, IGA with Prescott Valley in order to share cost of acquiring that land and share in the potable water supply that's from that land. In Arizona Revised Statute 45555, a municipality in the Prescott AMA is able to withdraw and transport up to 8,068 acre feet a year if they meet all the requirements within that statute. The only municipality that can meet all of those requirements within that statute at this time is the city of Prescott. So when we talk about it being in part of our portfolio, it's because we can deliver that water to other municipalities or other developments within the AMA, but it would be part of our portfolio and we would be delivering that water to them. When we talk about an IGA with Prescott Valley, and we're saying that they have 45% of the water or 46% of the water, that's because we're delivering them that water from our portfolio. So it's part of our water supply if it comes in. Currently, we have lease agreements with ranchers in the area. They help be, Leslie has told me, our eyes and ears on the water ranch that is so far away from us. Make sure that they let us know if anything is going on out there that we should be aware of. Help us understand, current conditions, and they're good partners for us to help try to keep and manage the land as best as we can, since we do own it. And I just want to mention that there has been no significant pumping on the Big Chino since we purchased that land in 2004. So just for clarification on that. Currently, we do have a project with the Nature Conservancy. They're looking at a project that helps rehabilitate some of the native grassland area and reduce some of the erosion potential that you see out in the Big Chino. And one of the project sites, they approached the city and said, we'd like to see if we could do some test projects out in the Big Chino to try to see what would work, what works efficiently for helping restore some of the Big Chino wash back to its more native, as agriculture and other man-led uses out there have caused some of the degradation of the stream, moving it around or making it more incise so that it doesn't cause problems to some of the agricultural things that are going on there, has caused the floodplain to kind of not perform as it would have normally done. So they're looking at projects and that could help out with that. So we're currently, we brought that to council about a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago now. And council said, yeah, we're supportive of that. So we did a memo of understanding. They've produced a report for us, and I think we've narrowed it down to 3 alternatives that they're going to develop some 30% plans for, and then they're going to go out there and try to find some funding. We might pick up to 2 of them to try and do some test piloting to see what we can do out there. So back in 2024, with the Big Chino Water Ranch, we bought the ranch in 2004. By 2006, 2007, the city had significantly completed plans to start that would allow the construction of the infrastructure for the Big Chino Water Ranch. By 2008, 2009, the city had moved into some other direction. They decided to put the project on hold. And then throughout that whole time, we hadn't really kept up with the cost of the Big Chino project, but knowing how much the project's going to cost is kind of a big factor in understanding how you're going to get it accomplished if that's what you want to do. So back in 2024, we got with the engineer of record, and they did an updated cost for us based on the infrastructure needed. Once again, your Big Chino well fields are all up in the Big Chino Ranch right here. To get that water, it has to come down approximately 30 miles to the Chino Valley Water Production Facility right in this area. There has to be a pump station kind of right in the middle, somewhere right around here, in order to give it a little bit of a boost so that you can get it back upgrade a little bit. So the well fields, the pump station, and all of the pipe infrastructure is what you're going to see in this cost estimate right here. You'll notice that there's a line coming down right here from the Big Chino Water Production Facility, and it goes down to Prescott Valley. So that's infrastructure that Prescott Valley needs to get the water to their customers. That infrastructure is not included in this cost. It's not included in the IGA. So what you're seeing here is just that infrastructure to get it down here to the water production facility from the Big Chino well field. So broken down, the baseline cost $261.5 million. With the IGA that we have with Prescott Valley, that cost would break down to approximately $141.5 million for Prescott and $120 million for Prescott Valley. So those are as of 2024 numbers at this point in time.
Lois?
Right now, that water is just going in one direction, from north to south.
In this schematic, the water is going in one direction, from north to south.
And so those numbers of the cost estimate is only to get the water to us. It doesn't talk about any kind of recharge or anything of moving anything back up to the water ranch. So just for everyone, when you're wrapping your minds around, if we get to that point, it'll be very expensive.
So this is the infrastructure that would be needed to get the water from the Big Chino Water Ranch to the water production facility so that it could be then transported into the city through its current infrastructure and to its customers.
So mitigation's not included.
Mitigation is not included in any of this infrastructure numbers that you see here. It's simply a cost estimate based on the plans, the construction plans that were around a 90% level back in 2006, 2007.
Mary?
Brian?
Yeah.
Although it's included on your schematic here, do I understand you correctly that portion, that southmost portion that is on your map from the Chino Valley production fields down into Prescott Valley, the IGA does not put any of that burden of construction on Prescott?
Correct.
That's 100% PVs?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Mr. Gehring?
It would seem, looking at the costs involved, that this would require a Prop 401 approval from the people. Are you thinking about that?
I think that if the city is looking at building this extensive infrastructure, it needs to get the public needs to be behind that. And Prop 401 is a mechanism to ensure that you have the public's backing and supporting of a project of this nature.
Because they're the ones going to be paying for it.
It's true.
Yes. Any other comments? Many council members? Okay, so then we'll move into comprehensive agreement number one. Grab it. So we purchased property in 2004. By 2006, we have 90% plans available and are moving forward. At the same time, there's considerable difference in opinion on how a project like this might affect water rights in the Verde River.
So comprehensive agreement number one comes out of the 2010 agreement in principle. So, through that period from 2004 to 2010, differences of opinion on whether water rights are infringed or harmed by a project of this nature between us and water right holders of the Verde River. At some point, litigation going on because of that. And in 2010, it was decided that, we create this agreement in principle that would create the framework to provide a scientific study that would try to determine what the possible impacts of pumping from the Big Chino Water Ranch might have on the water rights of the Verde River, and then determining what type of mitigation strategies could be used to resolve all that. So it was a framework that that was agreed upon. It got us out of litigation and that framework led to the plan, the comprehensive agreement number one, that was utilized to try to take those goals of the agreement in principle and bring them into reality. So comprehensive agreement number one in 2012 had components of modeling and monitoring in it. I was given an initial budget of $5.6 million. So that $5.6 million went to things like monitoring wells, went to cameras, gauging stations, all types of monitoring that could be utilized and incorporated into the modeling aspect. And then a modeler was brought on board to start creating that model that would be used for this process. So the cost breakdown is shown right there, SRP 1/3, cost breakdown for City of Prescott and Prescott Valley 2/3, and that 2/3 is broken down further by the IGA's cost sharing agreement.
How much have we spent over the years? Because every year they ask for another year. Mm-hmm. And it's been going on for, I don't know, as long as I've been on council.
I don't have the exact number right here, so this is kind of a swab, but I think we got about $500,000. Is that fairly close, Leslie? You'd say in the $5.6 million budget?
300,000 left.
300?
300,000 remains.
Okay, three or two?
300,000.
$300,000 remaining in the original budget.
So now that all the money's spent, they're going to come up with a final in July. That's it, because they know there's no more money. That's amazing how that worked.
So, well, yeah, so the modeling effort, we do believe is coming to an end for the base model. Completion somewhere around the middle of the year, maybe as early as the end of May, maybe around June, July, just depending on how that finalization goes. Prescott is the fiduciary for CA1, so we pay out all the bills and then we invoice the partners back to get reimbursed. On that role, or with that role, completion of the model is pretty significant milestone that we're looking at and being done here towards the middle of this year. With that, then we'll move right into a scenario analysis or scenario development. So looking at the various scenarios, doing projections on pumping, possibly projections on recharge too. We'll have to get with the rest of the party and we'll have to agree upon the scenario approaches. Those scenarios, when we get our model done, it'll have been calibrated, it'll have been looked at in many different ways. But those scenarios are going to be the first time that we're actually exercising this model. Comprehensive agreement number one, it was a long-term commitment. And it really is going to be a long-term commitment. Scenario development.
Longer than a lot of marriages.
So, yeah, exactly. And the scenario development is just another stage in it. Once we start exercising the model, we'll see how it reacts and make sure that it reacts the way that we think that model should be reacting, make sure that it's actually producing results that make sense. Their scenario development might also determine where we need to have more monitoring or better monitoring locations in order to provide more information to the model. Because once again, this is the first time the model is ever going to be used specifically, for the reasons within CA1. So it's a long-term commitment, and it's an evolving process. So, but we're coming towards a significant milestone. We'll have more information for you as we move forward.
Another thing I'd like to bring out is, as far as costs, is if we do start increasing our capacity to pump the Big Chino, we're creating more wastewater. So we have to look at a balancing act, and we're going to have to be increasing our capacity to treat that wastewater. And I think that's a conversation that we need to have along with this conversation.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leads right into the long-term water management plan conversation. So many different ways to use the Big Chino water supply. You could use it to try to offset pumping from the Little Chino water supply, or Little Chino aquifer. You could use it to try to offset projected growth. It's going to take a number of years to build the infrastructure for Big Chino Water Ranch. So the projections that you're making on how you're going to use it are going to be in the future. So you have to make baseline assumptions of what are your pumping needs going to be when a Big Chino Water Ranch would come, where it's an available water source, when it's actually physically available. So that falls right into the long-term water management planning. So this is a one slide for a process that's going to take over a year just to do what we're calling phase one, which is laying down basic foundation of long-term water management planning. That's going to then continue on to various other phases. So this is super simplified, but on the component side of it, these are kind of some of the main components that we're going to be starting off with. So supply and demand. You'll hear us talk about the water resource management model, the WRM. You'll hear that acronym a lot, and it has the ability to, or it has all of our accounts and all of our water information. It has our existing customers in there. It has our committed customers in there as a tool that was built to help us understand our assured water supply. And that tool is based on the rules of the Assured Water Supply Program for the most part as we created it. There was also only a certain amount of time to really dig into that tool and make sure that it had all the information that it needed in it. So this long-term water management plan has let us reopen that tool up a little bit and make sure that it has all of the information that it needs, and also to use it to define a more broad long-term water management goal in supply and demand, and not just the more narrow focus of the assured water supply, which is a subtle difference, but it is a difference. The city, in its assured water supply, has to meet certain obligations. It has to work within the framework and the rules of the state. But as a city, we have a much broader range of ability to determine where the city is and how it's going to look and how it's going to develop. We have economic development people who are looking at, what's the best way for the city to develop. We have planning and zoning people and our zoning department, our community development department that have an idea of how the city is going to develop. We have a council that looks at their strategic plan and eventually a general plan that will speak to how the city is going to develop. So that broader aspect is what we're trying to instill in the water resource management model now. by talking to all of those staff members and bringing it in front of council, because council will eventually have to vote on the long-term water management plan and make sure that it's that vision and that plan is where they want to see it go. That plan will allow us hopefully to have a guiding document so that future councils can see how water management was envisioned and stay on the course. There'll always be changes. There'll always be, directions that veer off one way or another. But that plan hopefully keeps everybody focused on the main goals, on the main vision of that plan, and then because that's what's needed in order to get there. So that's, in a nutshell, that's why we're doing this. Demand management, we were talking about, Tracy, about conservation. We have 3 planning horizons for this plan: 10-year, 25-year, and 50-year at this point. And staff envisions that 10-year horizon is going to be significantly about demand management, and that means conservation efforts. All those things that Tracy was talking about, and really fine-tuning her numbers so she knows how every one of those toilets, how much water we're really saving, that's super important in that first horizon of the long-term water management plan. We got to have a baseline that we know where we're starting from is fairly accurate, so we're not fooling ourselves when we think how much water we're really saving by our efforts. But our consultants and Tracy and all her work are helping to get that really defined for us. Demand management, so we're going to be asking our customers, to do their part, and we're going to try to give them incentives to do their part, but we have to do our part too. It doesn't stop there. On our infrastructure side, we have to identify areas where we have leaks, where why we have breaks at certain areas, and where we might have spillage. And that's all part of demand management, is getting those losses down as much as possible. And that's where we'll be working with Steve and water operations and wastewater operations in order to do. We were talking about that ion water and the advanced metering infrastructure we're putting in, the AMI, all those new meters, smart meters, I think they call them sometimes. There are abilities to take that information and strategically place meters in your infrastructure system so you can identify where you have more leak-prone infrastructure, and then put that into your capital improvement plan so that you can evaluate how you're going to either update that infrastructure, make sure that it works better. Sophisticated processes is through AMI that we could employ in the future to really help us reduce those leaks. I think the question was asked, have we saw the leaks at this point? Well, we're only 50% into the project at this point. And once we get to 100% on that project, we can start talking about ways that we can develop and the analysis to use that effectively for to reduce our losses in our system. So that's huge. We have a potential.
Let me ask you this. You're talking about demand analysis and how important it is. But as we know, it's water that manages growth. Has there been any conversations with the council or just the community and our stakeholders about how we can better manage our growth with the water that we have?
Well, I think so that the components of supply and demand, and getting a clear vision on what our demands are, what the obligations we've met or that we've already taken on with our existing customers. And then the third leg of that is trying to project as accurately as possible about the water that has to come with those obligations. Those obligations you can take those in and they have volumes that you can use. But we all know that if you bring in a certain number of people, they're going to need support facilities. They're going to need hospitals. They're going to need commercial restaurants. They're probably going to need recreational facilities that probably take up water too, parks, rec centers, things like that. So once we have a grip of the true, and that's where I'm talking about moving away from just the assured water supply rules to a more of a more broad, aspect of what is the community really going to look like in 20 years, in 50 years.
We don't want to get labeled as, anti-growth or stagnant or anything like that. But, we need to manage our water, which will manage our growth, because we don't want our growth to outstrip our ability to supply water, supply the infrastructure, supply all the services that we need to deliver if we are going to continue to grow sustainably and grow wisely.
That's where knowledge is everything, and having good information is everything. Because once you know what those demands are compared to your supplies, you can make informed decisions on how you want to manage that. But you have to have that information. So that's what comes from this long-term water management plan, is the information. Strategies and alternatives are derived from that, and then they can be discussed by the council and then picked in which direction the city wants to go.
And another thing that we need to address that I haven't seen in the discussion here today is the drought. We have a 30-year drought, and that is critically impacting our recharge, because we recharge depends on like over 75% of natural recharge. And just look at this winter, how it's been going, and our groundwater levels are dropping. And I think that needs to be a very important part of this discussion going forward. And also, I have a question about the worm. The worm model has like 57 variables. And at the time, was the drought part of one of the variables?
No, it's not.
Well, I think that we should add that variable because it's the data, it's the variables that create the data, and data can be manipulated by the variables. So if you don't even have the drought variable in there, it makes me wonder about the accuracy of what we're going by with this, with the worm.
There's not a drought variable, but there's an ability to kind of, I was trying to say here, there's an ability to adjust the assumptions made on the demand side, which you could utilize to account for more water use based on certain climate conditions. So those, we have the ability to do a slider. That's what I guess I was trying to say. You could slide your demands up and down. You can move your assumptions around in order to project a future that would kind of, or a future that would include assumptions about climate variability, about drought, things of those natures. Yeah, and that is embedded in the worm. We have the ability to do that.
Yeah, because it's really not a crystal ball.
No, it's not.
Jay?
Just with the CA1, it's been getting worked on for, I guess, close to 8 years plus. Mm-hmm. Has there been any disclosure to the public around the approaches to the model? Like what do we know from all that work, or what has been released to the public?
So the CA1, there hasn't been a whole lot of disclosure on the nuts and bolts of the model. It's a sensitive agreement. It was an agreement born out of litigation, and it's a model that has to satisfy all three parties. That it is a model that is accurate. It's based on sound scientific knowledge and assumptions, and that that model has to be competent in a legal standpoint, right? It basically, it has to stand up in a court of law as being legally defendable. Or it just doesn't make it, it won't do anything when you have three parties that have different objectives and that are trying to come to a resolution. The model has to be able to be, it has to meet all of that criteria. And it's taken a long time to get there. And it's been scrutinized quite a bit. But until the three parties agree on that.
Who has done it?
What's that?
Who has scrutinized it? If there hasn't been public disclosure, who's been doing the scrutinizing?
So the model started off, it was based on a third-party modeler, but each of the parties, the City of Prescott and Prescott Valley, has a specialized technical consultant that advises them. They're modelers, expert modelers. And then SRP has their own specialized technical consultant who's an expert modeler. And they have been advising throughout the creation of this model in order to ensure that it's going to be able to be a defendable model and stand up to any scrutiny that it's going to have when it gets out there and is being utilized for the purposes of trying to determine what are the effects of pumping on the Verde River. So we've been working through that. Honestly, until the three parties come to a conclusion that this model is ready to go, there's no reason to put it out to the public. They have to. It's born from the CA1 agreement, and those three parties have to agree that this model is ready before we move on and with either usage or moving it out to public.
Lois?
Yeah, I don't think in the 2 years I've been on council that I've seen any of this. I've heard about it, but I haven't seen any of it. So talk about the public, even council leadership hasn't seen it, right? I don't recall seeing it.
Yeah, no, there's, we've just been going
tight
through.
to the chest with a few people.
Going through the process of trying to get the model just move slowly and incrementally to a point of being ready to start working on a scenario basis. And it's been a slow and it's been a process that's one step forward, two steps back, and then two steps forward and one step back. And
So to build on Jay's questions, when we get to the model completion, maybe this summer, and then the scenario analysis that comes out of it, as part of the comprehensive agreement, will all of the municipalities be able to have elected leaders, public members, et cetera, understand what this even is?
yes, definitely.
Okay.
The three parties need to come to an agreement on various talking points. We don't want the City of Prescott saying one thing about the model and having SRP saying another thing about the model. So we're going to be going through the process of making sure that we, what are our talking points? How is it going to be presented? Various aspects of that communication plan.
So even if
need to
they
be
do
created.
come out with a model, if people don't like what it says, then they're just going to sue over it and tie it up in court?
Well, I'm not saying that, but I am saying that the model has to be able to stand on its own 2 feet. It has to be solid enough that people feel that it's a defendable model. And with that, then it has a chance of doing what it needs to do, which is being able to be used to actually evaluate what the impacts of pumping are, and then from there, try to find strategies to mitigate that to everybody's satisfaction.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's already almost 3:00. Can we move on to the
Definitely.
HELA adjudication? And
Yeah.
I was wondering if our legal department, Mr. Young, are you able to maybe add a few things to the HELA adjudication discussion, or?
I certainly can. I'll wait and see how well Brian does, but I can add.
Yeah, okay. I think
Okay.
that'd be important to hear from you too.
So this is very high level because this is very complicated. But I want to make sure that you guys have heard of the HELA adjudication and you kind of have an understanding of why it's important.
First, it's the Gila River watershed adjudication, and it is all the surface water of basically northern Arizona. That watershed goes all the way over to Pine Top, Lakeside, Payson. It's all of northern Arizona, as I understand.
It's all of the tributaries to the Gila River.
Yeah.
And the important one for us is the Verde.
Verde.
The Verde is is a tributary to the Gila, so it is part of the adjudication.
Mm-hmm.
And because we are part of the Verde watershed, we are part of the adjudication. So, and in a nutshell, the adjudication, what does it do? It's a court process that's going to determine, who has water rights, how much water they're entitled to, and the priority of those water rights. So with water rights, priority is very important. If you're first, then you have higher priority in times of need, drought, or not enough water. Higher priority rights take precedent over lower priority rights. And that's why an adjudication is a process to kind of figure out where you stand with other right holders
It was
on a
basically
watershed.
first come, first serve. And it involves our Native American tribes.
Yep,
have
definitely.
Have definitely got the first rights.
Yep, settlement agreements and
Yes.
My understanding was with the adjudication with the Verde River, where they're going to pipe water down from above Payson to Camp Verde through the Yavapai Apache, that the Yavapai Apache relinquished their rights to a permanently flowing Verde River up to that point, up to Camp Verde.
yeah, I can't really speak of that.
I can just address
myself.
that briefly.
Thank you.
There is a settlement that's been negotiated related to the Yavapai Apache. That's not part of the adjudication. It's a bunch of other rights, and that has to go through Congress. But yes, that's been resolved, but it's not part of the adjudication for the Gila River.
Part of that agreement, though, was that the Yavapai Apache would give up the rights to a free-flowing Verde River, as I remember hearing it when I saw the presentation.
They gave up some of their claims on the river, right?
We have to clarify that's the tribe over in Camp Verde, not our local tribe.
Yes, it is.
So we need to clarify
Sorry.
that.
But we're the Yavapai Prescott tribe here, and it's the Yavapai Apache there.
That's correct.
Yeah, so the adjudication is a legal process. It will define those water rights. As we discussed, it's procedural and long-term. What does that mean? It means that it's the whole point of it is to provide legal certainty and long-term water security. So it's a grueling process. It's in its 40th or 50th year. I don't even know for sure. But the whole point is that after you do this long process, you can make decisions about your water supplies because you have a certainty and an understanding from a legal basis of what you have in your water. So
But
that's why it's
my
important.
understanding is whenever there's a decision or something that gets adjudicated, it's always appealed. And so it just goes on and on and on.
These water adjudications take decades. And so, and to be kind of clear, you mentioned Pine Top. Most of that area, the White Mountains, they don't relate to the Gila River. They're going through their own adjudication, the Little Colorado adjudication. So there's sort of a few main adjudications, and the Verde or the Gila applies mostly to Yavapai County, a little bit of Coconino, and then clearly Maricopa is a big recipient of that water. But yes, there's elements and trials all throughout the adjudication. I'm sure Brian's going to talk about a trial that we had that's very important to us, and often these elements are appealed. But even when they resolve, they can be kind of readdressed and so forth. So yes, it takes decades. I think 30 years sometimes it will take up to that amount for some of these adjudications.
Yeah, so why does it matter to Prescott? Well, we're part of the Upper Verde watershed. So that's part of the Gila adjudication. Looking at surface water and closely connected groundwater subflow. So that word subflow is a word that you're going to probably hear a lot about over the course of the next few years. As Joe was just talking about, there's a product that is being produced for this adjudication. It's called a hydrogeographic survey report. And in that hydrogeographic survey report, subflow basin delineations are defined. And what subflow can be loosely translated is it's the groundwater that is connected to a surface water source in a close enough way that it is basically considered surface water from an adjudication standpoint. In other words, it's appropriable. So if you have wells within that subflow zone, then you are probably pulling water that is appropriable from the adjudication standpoint and is going to be subject to the water rights and the priorities set by the adjudication. So subflow zones are very, very important. We, in an initial preliminary hydrogeographic survey report for the Big Chino wash, it was a subflow zone was not created because it was determined that that particular wash did not meet the criterion for requiring a subflow zone to be created for it.
So we're saying that the Big Chino is not a subflow zone for the Verde River?
At this point.
What's it being labeled, an intermittent stream?
It's being labeled as, not
ephemeral.
Not ephemeral, or ephemeral and not intermittent or, but that's at this moment. That was objected to by SRP. It's fairly complicated, but the Department of Water Resources produced another report for the special master who oversees this process, and the special master, I think, is reviewing that report and will make another decision, not a final decision, but another decision that again can have another objection period that has to go through before, I think, going to the final through the final procedure and being finalized. To your point, there's a lot of objection periods and there's a lot of steps involved in getting to where we have to go on it. But yeah, that's why the adjudication is important to the city, though, is we're part of this whole process because we're in the watershed.
So does that have an impact on the modeling that we're creating in the CA1 agreement? The
CA1 is it doesn't have an impact on the model that we're creating. No, not anything that I can see that is a direct impact. No, not really.
How does our model view groundwater, as subflow or as an ephemeral stream? Our model is looking at the aquifer and trying to create the best representation for that aquifer that can be used to try to determine the effects of pumping. And the subflow delineation is looking at a different aspect of how that groundwater and how that surface water interconnect for the purposes of establishing water right. So they're two different. It's two different applications there. We're looking at and want to understand how an aquifer reacts. We start pumping. We create a cone of depression. The aquifer might start to recede, and how does that affect downstream, eventually, the Verde River? A subflow delineation is looking at how groundwater and surface water interact for the purposes of determining whether a well that is within a subflow area or maybe even close to a subflow area will impact a surface water source for the purposes of determining those water rights and how those water rights are impacted by that particular pumping. So
Brian,
they don't really cross.
If I may.
Yeah.
So in determining whether the stream was ephemeral or intermittent and so forth, and whether it should be part of the subflow zone, if we had a perfect model, we would have used that perfect model at our trial and shown, hey, this is not or this is. but we didn't. So we went to trial and we had arguments about whether it was ephemeral or not. And we used information from newspapers from the 1800s, homestead claims, and so forth that showed that there was not an existing river at the time to prove that it was ephemeral, and we were able to win that argument.
Congratulations.
To this point.
Yeah, things can always change.
So subflow is super important in the adjudications, and it's something that we're monitoring. And again, the rulings of the HELA adjudication, they can affect your water rights claims. They could affect where you can or where you choose to put new wells in the future. So these are all things that really go hand in hand with how you're going to manage your water resources and where you're going to invest in infrastructure, where you're going to invest in new water supplies if you're going to do that. So it's all very important to that aspect, and so the city is looking into it. At this point, what are we doing with the HELA adjudication? We're reviewing the statement of claimants. Leslie pointed out that we submitted statement of claimants for the adjudication years ago. However, those statement of claimants are subject to different rulings that have happened in the HELA adjudication over some of the other watersheds. Could actually impact how you want to file your statement of claimants. Because as you get more information on rulings from the HELA adjudication and those precedents are set, that might impact the way you want to strategize how you want to move forward in making your case when it comes to our time in the HELA adjudication. So we are compiling all our statement of claimants at this point in time, and we are going to provide them over to our legal consultants who specialize in HELA adjudication, so that they can look them over and say, yeah, this looks great. This is where you want to be, or yeah, this is where you would have wanted to been a few years ago, but we might want to look at it in a different way now that we know what the court has said in previous rulings in other places.
Let me ask you this. We have outsourced our water legal services to Pierce & Pierce. Is that it, who we use?
No, Brown & Brown is handling the
Oh, I'm
adjudication.
sorry. Brown and I knew it was something similar. Brown & Brown.
Well, Pierce does assist us with the
right.
other thing we're
Okay,
talking
so
about.
Brown & Brown. Is there any way, we hired them and we haven't heard anything, at least at the council level. Is there any way we could have them come in and give us an update, a presentation?
Yeah, I think we have
what's
planned for them to come in in the not too distant future.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be very helpful to have them come in and do a presentation to us, because I think the general public has no idea what we go through to protect our water rights. They just think, oh, I turn on the tap, I have plenty of water, no problem.
So Brown & Brown is going to review the statement of claimants, and they said that they like to review those first, and then they want to come down and get a better idea of our water system as a whole, and make sure they have a good understanding of how we use the water, how everything works for the city, and then they said that they would be more than happy to present to council. And help them understand how they are helping us proceed in the HELA adjudication and some of the events that are happening and with that. So preliminarily, I think we're going to give them a couple months to look over our statement of claimants and kind of get prepared for that. And I think it was somewhere around the April-May range we were talking about them coming down. So.
All right.
Okay, and then, so just to wrap this up real quickly, because I know you guys got other work to do. Monitoring of court activities. So again, we've been looking at what's happening in other parts of the HELA watersheds to understand what those rulings are and how they may impact the city when it comes time for our time when they get to the upper Verde watershed, which we're part of. So we've been monitoring that. Brown and Brown, our legal department, has given Water Resources Management updates on proceedings, and then Brown and Brown has given our legal department updates on what they've seen on the proceedings. So it's been trickling down that way, and then. And again, yeah, so that third point is basically that the city's legal department's been actively involved in the Gila adjudication and getting supplemental help from a law firm that basically does nothing but working in this field of Gila adjudication. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at this point.
Okay. Any comments, Mr. Gehring?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm still not clear as to whether or not the Gila adjudication has the potential to interfere in some way with our groundwater model. And let me give you the example of why. Back in 1982, I helped write a groundwater agreement for 3 small cities in a district, the Arroyo Grande groundwater basin. It held until 1995, when the adjudication of the Santa Maria River groundwater basin began. That adjudication is still in progress, by the way. And what happened is we found out in our little sub-basin that we were a sub-basin. We were not an independent groundwater basin, and the court included us in the adjudication. And at that point, there were over 1,000 litigants in this case. So I'm concerned that we might be ahead of our headlights here until this Gila adjudication is settled, if it's going to be settled.
It won't be settled anytime soon.
Yeah.
I can tell you that much. But will the Gila adjudication impact the Big Chino? And the answer is not at the moment. But the results of the model could impact the adjudication. So there's a lot of open questions here. And the model is really kind of the biggest thing. It's, first of all, we have an agreement. It's the biggest thing about understanding how the Big Chino interacts with the watershed and so forth. So there's not a good answer until we have that model.
But the better that model is, the more useful it is to the city in both the Gila adjudication and CA1, having that good information, having a model that you can stand by.
Mr. Gambogi, do you have any thoughts?
I'm going to start timing my request to speak because mine is about a half hour old, which came before Ruby.
Because it says here.
Councilman
before
Ruby and
Fulworth,
Councilman Gambogi.
and before Gehring.
I'm sorry,
So
but
in the spirit
on
of
my
bringing an end to
screen,
this gotcha questions and pontifications, I withdraw my question.
I'm sorry, but respectfully, Mr. Gambogi, it says right here on my screen, it says no speakers. So I don't know what happened here. And but you could also, give me a little wave.
That's because you're not in the right section.
Oh, okay. All right. So next time, maybe just kind of, if you feel like you're being ignored, you could just give me a little wave.
Next time you could call on speakers in the order they requested.
Yeah, but it was not showing up on my screen. It needed
So
an
every
adjustment.
time you go, you need to click the blue icon, like
Yeah.
we've discussed a few times now, to take you
Right.
into the current item, and that will show you the speakers on that item, because it's been
Okay.
throughout the meeting that the
Yes.
speakers have been up and they've not been called upon.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Lois? I'm good. You're good? Mary?
Nothing further from me.
Okay, Mr. Ruby?
I'm curious who from the city is part of the CA1 discussions.
Yeah, so our representative for our technical advisory committee for CA1 is Leslie Gracier. And I attend the meetings when I can, so I'm part of it. And then we take that information and we pass it along to Chelsea Walton, who is my boss and director. And she often will then take that information or ask me to directly take it over to the city manager and who is our principal for CA1. So our city manager is our principal. So a number of people, when we were in Public Works, it would have gone through our Public Work Director. Now she's been let off the hook a little bit, and it's going through our Community Development Director. But that's kind of your chain right there. Leslie, myself, City Manager, ComDev Director.
Thank
And
you.
Okay, well, in summary, I just would like to thank our Water Resources Department for all your hard work. This is a very complicated issue going forward, but it's, water management is very critical, and I think we're doing a good job with what the information we have, with managing it. And I also like to thank our legal department for keeping on top of it. But, we have a few challenges, and it's hotter and drier. It's 2 degrees hotter here. We're getting, our drought's been going on for 30 years. It's affecting our groundwater recharge, subsurface water, our lake levels. So then we have the PFAS contamination happening that affects how much, we had to shut down one of our big producing wells at the airport. So we need to look at our legislation. What is the state doing to legislate for water? And they haven't been making it a priority, I guess. We're just not getting any of the legislation we need to protect our groundwater resources. And then, we have caps on how much we can pump from the Big Chino and also from the Little Chino. We have to make sure we don't over-allocate our water, because if we do, we're going to be held to it legally. We just can't say, oops, sorry, we don't have any water. So it's very important that we stay on top of this and grow sustainably and manage our growth in such a way that we don't run out of resources like water. So thank you very much.
Mayor, if I could.
Yes, Mr. Oh,
If I could, I just wanted to leave you with one last thing, because I feel like just to cap it off, to give you an idea when the proceedings will get to us. The proceedings are for the HELA adjudication, the final hydrographic survey report for the Sycamore Basin, which is part of the Verde River. It's starting here in March, and they're going to have that preliminary report done, or the final survey done by March of 2027. Then it's going to move on to the lower Verde Valley, and that's when things are going to get serious. That's when it's going to include Cottonwood, Sedona, all of those communities down there. Looking at a preliminary hydrographic survey report by September of 2027, started off for that, and that kicks off that proceedings. And then for the Big Chino and the Little Chino, our area, the preliminary hydrographic survey report is going to be due in March of 2029. So that just gives you a little bit of time frame on when we're going to be seeing some of this stuff come in.
thank you. Ongoing vigilance. This meeting's adjourned.